Bare essentials, the extra bits that don't fit. I might be talking about a manoeuvre.
It might be making something.
It might be a little bit more technical, all the extra bits that don't fit. We're just going to cover the Schengen situation and the right of innocent passage, which is something we've used or suffered from because we haven't had Schengen time, so we've had to use the right of innocent passage to pass through territorial waters. In episode 20 I was on the bow explaining where we were going and what we were doing, so I'll hand back over to there and then we'll put some detail on it around the Schengen time and the right of innocent passage. And now it's the 1st of March. We're bound by Schengen rules because Britain left the European Union, so we're only allowed to spend 90 days in any 180, in a rolling 180, in the Schengen area, which is mainly the EU and a few other countries. So we've left on the 1st of March. The reason that we've left on the 1st of March, well actually 2nd of March, is we checked out on the 1st of March. The reason we left then is so that we can have 90 days out of the Schengen area, and then we can go into Schengen again in June, which means we can spend June, July and August in Greece. That's our intention. But now what we're doing now is we've checked out of Portugal. We can't now go ashore in any Schengen country until June. So you may have a question about how we ended up, or why did we try to cross the Schengen zone with no time. Well, there were various reasons, but basically we were hoping to stay in Gibraltar for the winter, but there was no space. We had been told that we could apply for a visa in Portugal. That didn't exist. And by then we'd used up all our time. We didn't have a home to go back to in the UK, so we couldn't go back to the UK. So we were stuck doing what we were doing. And on hindsight, we could have paid to go fly somewhere else and stay in Montenegro or wherever, but that would have cost a lot of money. So we ended up in the situation that we were in, and yeah, and I had to deal with it as it was. Okay, so what is this Schengen business that we keep banging on about? Well, Schengen was an agreement made back in 1985 between various countries, which basically removed internal border checks within those countries, those European countries. There are now some 26 countries within Schengen. They are mostly the countries of the European Union, but there are a couple that aren't EU but are Schengen. The Schengen zone is what's important more than the EU. And within the Schengen zone there are various rules which kind of apply across all countries, and basically travellers like us can stay within the Schengen zone for 90 days in any 180 days, in a rolling 180 days. There is very little deviation from that, but individual countries are allowed to issue their own national visas. France, I believe, does a tourist visa. But they are one of the only ones who actually offer a tourist visa. You can get extended visas for work, for study, various other things. France seems to be the only one that offers a tourist visa. So we are stuck with that 90 in 180, and I will hopefully demonstrate that very shortly, what that actually means to us and how you sort of count it forward. Okay, so I'm going to try and explain this 90-180 thing using clothes pegs. So each peg is going to represent 10 days. Schengen does work in individual days. If you are a non-Schengen country or a non-EU country, then you can stay in the Schengen zone, depending on which country you're from, but most countries get visa-free travel in the Schengen zone for 90 days. You're allowed to be in the country, in the Schengen zone for 90 days in a rolling 180-day period. So what I'm going to do is going to use pegs to represent 10 days. Okay, because I haven't got enough pegs in the world to do 180 days, so there's 18 pegs on this piece of wood, so they are 10 days each, so that is your rolling 180 days. So if you go into the Schengen zone for 10 days, there is your 10-day peg, and then as time rolls on, as in 10 days goes forward, 10 days forward, 10 days forward, you've got 10 days in the last 180 still. You can have another one there, and then that's 20 days in the last 180. Then the days rolled on, 10 days, 10 days, 10 days. Happen to come in for another 10. You've now got 30 days in the last 180. Time goes on. If you don't spend any more time in the Schengen zone, it will march on to the point where it drops off the end. Boom. Now in the last 180 days, that period there, you've only been in 20 days. Okay, so that's how that kind of works. But what it really means for people like us, people who are spending a long time in the Schengen zone, I thought if we'd been in for 90 days, this is what I originally thought, if we'd been in for 90 days, and then I thought we could go out for a week and we'd be able to come back in for a week. It doesn't work like that, as you'll see with the rolling 180. So if you look, so this was us in Portugal. Anything beyond the 180 days doesn't count, so ignore the fact that we were in Portugal for more than 90 days. That was a special arrangement that Portugal was allowed to make and did make. So if we've been in the Schengen zone for 90 days, so we leave now, so 10, 20, 30, so that's a month. We've been out for a month, but in the last 180 we've still been in for 90. Okay, so and then another 10, 20, 30, that's roughly another month. We've still been in for 90 in the last 180. And then finally 10, 20, 30. Now we've been out of the Schengen zone for 3 months. So in the last 180 days, we've still been in for 90. But that next 10 days, which is what we're about to do, boom, one drops off. Okay, so now we've only been in for 80 days in the last 180. So we can now go in and start going in again at this end. So now we've gone in for 10 days at the other end. It's still 90 in 180. Another 10 days, one drops off. You can put it on the other end. And that then is still 90 in 180. So, and that just keeps moving on like that. So if we then spend another 3 months in the Schengen zone, you can see how that will build up each month or each 10 days. It works exactly, it works on each individual day, but I haven't, like I say, to do that in individual pegs would be a bit too much. So just imagine they're 10 days and it carries on and it carries on. But the long and the short for long-term travellers is that if you've been in the Schengen zone for 90 days, which is give or take 3 months, you've then got to be out for 3 months. You can't just do a month out and have a month back in. If you've not been in at all, you can have a month in and a month out and a month in and a month out. It's fine. But if you've been in for 3 months or 90 days, you've got to go out for 90 days, which is why we have left why we left the Schengen zone on the 1st of March. We went to Gibraltar, which wasn't Schengen, and as upcoming videos, we then crossed the Mediterranean without checking in anywhere, using the right of innocent passage, which I will explain in a second. And we crossed the Mediterranean without checking in. So when we did get to the other side, we went into Montenegro, which is not a Schengen country, and so we've reset our time, and we've now got to the point where we've been out for 90. So we've been out for 90. We've only got to be out one more, and then we can move that one up to there. So we've still got 90 in 180. So I hope that's kind of cleared up a bit. My head's still a bit fuzzy on it myself, but that's the rolling 180 days. It just keeps rolling on, and your pegs can drop off. You can add pegs back on there. You can mix your pegs up however you like. It doesn't matter, as long as you don't have more than 9 pegs, if they're 10-day pegs, in your 180-day period. We're using what's called the right of innocent passage, which means we're allowed to sail through territorial waters, but we're not allowed to land and we're not allowed to loiter. We can. Okay, so we mentioned the right of innocent passage because we wanted to get from Gibraltar to Montenegro. Gibraltar is non-Schengen, Montenegro is non-Schengen. To get from Gibraltar to Montenegro, we had to pass through various Schengen countries, waters, and waters of other countries that we weren't checked into. So there was Spain, Italy, possibly Greece, although I think we're on the heel of Italy. We didn't go into Greek waters. Possibly Albanian waters. Albania is not Schengen, but it is, we hadn't checked into the country, and then into Montenegro. So there is what's called the United Nations Conventions on the Law of the Sea, which about 160 odd countries are signed up to, and certainly all the ones in the Mediterranean that we pass by are signed up to. And that is quite a long document, which I will put a link to at the bottom. This is actually the actual text. It starts off and it gives the definitions of the territorial sea, etc, etc, and then Article 17 is the right of innocent passage. So Article 17, the right of innocent passage. Subject to this convention, ships of all states, whether coastal or landlocked, enjoy the right of innocent passage through the territorial sea. Meaning of passage is Article 18. Passage means navigation through the territorial sea for the purpose of A. Traversing the sea without entering internal waters or calling it a roadstead or port facility, or proceeding to or from internal waters to call it such a roadstead or port facility. Article 18.2 is what I consider to be important one, is the passage shall be continuous and expeditious. However, passage includes stopping and anchoring, but only so far as the same are incidental to ordinary navigation or are rendered necessary by force majeure or distress, or for the purpose of rendering assistance to persons, ships or aircraft in danger or distress. Then Article 19 is the meaning of innocent passage. Well, there's quite a lot to that, but basically passage is innocent so long as it's not prejudicial to the peace and good order of security of the coastal state. The coastal state, Article 21, the coastal state can enforce laws relating to the protection of their environment, etc. But such laws shall not apply to the design, construction, manning or equipment of foreign ships unless they are given effect to generally accepted international rules or standards. So basically, if vessels in Greek internal waters have to comply with certain regulations, that shouldn't apply to a vessel making innocent passage. So all of that means that we can sail through the territorial waters of these countries that we're passing, even though we don't have any Schengen time. We're not checking in, we're just sailing through. The complicated bit, which I can't find a direct answer to, is yes, I can see that we can anchor off, but for example, we went into the Mar Menor, which is an enclosed area of water. You've got to go through a canal to get into it because the weather was getting nasty outside. Now that would be an internal water which the right of innocent passage doesn't give us the right to necessarily go into, but we were seeking refuge from bad weather, which could be considered force majeure, but that's one where we really weren't that comfortable that we were within our rights to do that. Hopefully any officials that would have checked us would have seen sense, but I'm not saying that that fell within the scope of that legislation. So there is one question that's cropped up a few times, and that is, we get reports, or I've seen it on Facebook and various other forums have said that people have been fined for going into Croatian waters or Albanian waters simply passing through. Well, that totally flies in the face of the right of innocent passage under the United Nations Convention. I can't really answer that. I've not experienced it ourselves. As far as that United Nations Convention says, you can pass through the waters and you don't have to check in or pay a cruising tax or anything just to pass through their waters. However, if you're approached by an official with a gun, then you make your own decision at that time, but I can't answer the actual legality of that. The United Nations Convention would tend to suggest that that's absolutely wrong if they are doing that, and I might politely ask them about it. Like I say, I can't confirm that that's actually happened. It's just stuff that I've read online or heard about, so yeah. But yeah, so that is the right of innocent passage. I just would stress that although Kate has a law degree and we're both retired police officers, so we have a good understanding of the law, it's only our interpretation of that law. We've not had any legal advice, we've not spoken to any officials. Our concern all the way across was that officials might see it differently to us. We might not have interpreted it right. So it was a nervous time, but people have asked about the right of innocent passage on numerous occasions that we were relying on. And that's it. That's what we were basing our assumptions on what we could do on, and to get across from Gibraltar to Montenegro. So there you go, that's our Schengen time and our right of innocent passage as we've researched. I can't guarantee any of it, but that's what we've found. So I hope that was of some use. Please do watch our other videos, subscribe to the channel if you get a chance. And just to close, here's a lovely Montenegro sunset.